Well, who doesn't love a good platformer, whether it be 2D or 3D? There are a lot of wonderful ones in the indie scene, so many in fact that often many become overlooked. That's what we're here to talk about today. 10 awesome action-packed indie platformers that perhaps you've never even heard of. Let's get right into it. First on our list is Kemono Heroes, a 2D action platformer that, believe it or not, allows for up to 4 players at once. This one was released on the Nintendo Switch and features adorable animal critters to play as, including a fox, a squirrel, a cat, and a monkey, and they all have unique abilities of their own. Most of the game involves jumping and climbing, along with some offensive attacks as well. While the game doesn't feature a ton of worlds, there is replayability here. The visuals are actually quite cute, with a 16-bit aesthetic that will bring you back to the good old SNES days. I love those days. And with a fairly decent soundtrack as well, it's all around a solid gaming experience. Kemono Heroes isn't earth-shattering by any means, but it's a fine little platformer that a good amount of people slept on. So if the 16-bit era was more your thing, this one is certainly worth picking up as it goes on sale often. In fact, if you're lucky enough to be watching this video as it releases, it is on sale right friggin' now. I'm not sure why this one never went to other platforms, so unfortunately, it is one of those rare indies that is only available on the Switch. The next game I'd like to talk about is the criminally underrated title Primal Light. In Primal Light, you play as Krog on a quest to find artifacts. This game's quite simple to play with basic jumping and slashing, but you also have the ability to heal yourself and roll out of the way of harm. Primal Light is pretty linear, but there are some areas to explore off of the beaten path where you can find cool amulets that will power up your character. It feels great to play and has excellent level design. The enemies are also really cool. In fact, the whole world just has this really neat artistic style to it. If you're a fan of Castlevania games, there are plenty of callbacks to that beloved franchise, and you'll definitely find much to love across these 10 levels, despite some challenging bosses. You do have difficulty options, however, if you're finding things to get a little bit too difficult. The game even has shops across its levels which allow you to purchase lives, and that helps to give you a bit more of a fighting chance. All told, Primal Light looks great, feels great, and animates beautifully. I'm really sad I don't hear it mentioned all that often these days, but hopefully I can help you to grab it at some point. Let me know in the comments below if you've played Primal Light, or even heard of it for that matter. Moving along, we have Clash Force, a run-and-gun action platforming title that calls back to 90s cartoons, which really hits me with nostalgia. You have 3 animals to choose between on a quest to take down Crackman. I've been fighting Crackman my entire life, personally. While there aren't a ton of weapons, and it's a very simplistic game, that doesn't mean it isn't a blast to play. The game features over 20 levels and multiple difficulties, which is nice, and the controls are really solid for the most part, except for having to mash on the fire button quite a bit. The visuals are similar to a classic 8-bit NES title, and I love that look myself, but your mileage may vary depending on your love for that era of gaming. The soundtrack also successfully emulates the NES, so if you're a fan of retro games, this one makes a whole lot of sense. Next up is a gorgeous and excellent release, Panzer Paladin. Released back in 2020, this all but forgotten gem has a great story, believe it or not, and backs it up with outstanding visuals, gameplay, and sound design. There are over 100 weapons and 17 levels in total. Similar to a Mega Man game, you can choose how you want to tackle it. Your mech is awesome to use with plenty of ways to attack and even a pogo attack that calls back to the classic DuckTales. You can dodge out of the way of attacks as well, making for a fairly robust combat engine. The game is tough and your success is often determined by which weapons you have available. You can also leave the Paladin altogether and travel areas on foot, which is really cool. It changes up the gameplay in some really fascinating ways. Panzer Paladin is a great tribute to classic anime mech flicks and the Mega Man franchise. I highly recommend grabbing this one if you're yet to do so. The lovely 8-bit style, great cutscenes, and environments make it beautiful to take in with an excellent chiptune soundtrack. You can thank me later. Go ahead and grab it. If you've ever watched Nightmare Before Christmas and thought to yourself, man, I wish that was a video game, well, they did actually release that in the US in 2005. But if you want a more modern gaming experience, there is Pumpkin Jack. Pumpkin Jack puts you in control of Jack the Pumpkin Lord, which technically makes him a bit more similar to Jack Pumpkinhead from Return to Oz, but I've already used enough comparisons in this brief description. Pumpkin Jack is your traditional 3D platformer with satisfying attacks, thrilling chase-style scenes, and clever puzzles to keep your attention. The visuals in Pumpkin Jack are pretty next level for an indie, especially for 2020. It took advantage of ray tracing, and it's awesome on the right rig. I had an absolute blast playing through this one, so much so in fact that I went through it twice. Sure, it has its jank, but this one is far from a rotten pumpkin, and you just can't beat it for Halloween season. One of the more recent titles on this list is Cavern of Dreams, which is a callback to the N64 era. While I don't think the N64 era will go down as one of my favorites, as the games always looked a bit muddy and washed out even back then, you have to give Cavern of Dreams props for emulating the look and feel of games on that console perfectly. Cavern of Dreams is surprisingly enjoyable to play, though it does have that N64 jank to it as well, and it will have you longing for the sweet microwavable taste of a Hot Pocket and a packet of Gushers. You kinda have to know what you're getting into with this one, but playing as Finn doesn't feel quite as old as the game looks. I highly recommend turning off the blur filter though, because, well, ugh. The game has a heavy emphasis on running and jumping, and as you progress you will gain more abilities to help in collecting all the available hidden objects. Some of the upgrades are really interesting and fun to use. I think this one's worth the nostalgia trip myself, even though I wish I had played with an N64 controller. Cavern of Dreams has plenty of jank, but the charm can't be denied. On to Webbed, which is another title a lot of folks slept on, and not just the arachnophobes among us. Sure, a platformer starring a spider doesn't sound great on paper, but Webbed does a lot right. This little indie tells the tale of a spider that is trying to rescue her boyfriend, who has been captured by a bowerbird, and you proceed through all manners of adventure to rescue him. You'll swing, climb, and skateboard through unique environments and banter with the witty locals from diverse environments throughout your quest. Webbed doesn't quite reach Tony Hawk levels of gameplay as far as your stunts that you pull off, but it is a hell of a lot more adorable. Dance with bugs, spin webs, and create your own path forward. And yeah, I'm gonna keep bugging you until you pick this one up. It's KO the Kangaroo up next, a lovely 3D collect-a-thon platformer that is a revival of a 2000 Sega Dreamcast game. This brand new reboot is often slept on, but was very well executed in my opinion. The visuals are really adorable, with large vibrant worlds to explore, plenty of secrets to find, and halfway decent combat for the genre. KO controls pretty well, using his magic boxing gloves to bash foes in the face. While the story and supporting cast are nothing to write home about, it's silly enough where it gets the job done. Jumping, punching, and ground pounding offer good fun, and of course you have pretty decent level variety as well, with some levels having you run Crash Bandicoot style from boulders, and others having you hang in, well, interesting ways involving your neck. Each level has a unique theme, and you can unlock more by collecting runes. Boss encounters are fairly fun as well, and you can also use coins to purchase plenty of items and upgrades for KO. While it seems this one kinda came and went, as it does have its camera issues, I personally think KO the Kangaroo is great fun, so it's worth checking out. Onward then, a rather simplistic 2D platformer is up next, but it's very cute and enjoyable despite that simplicity. I'm gonna call out Ao the Clown. If you're scared of clowns, this one's obviously a no-go. Otherwise, this one's well worth clowning around with. Don't expect much of a story here, or very rich dialogue, but it plays pretty competently and is a good option for younger players that are getting used to playing this genre of games. You start with no abilities whatsoever, but learn more as you go. Ao gets some pretty fun clown-themed attacks and can also upgrade his balloon. The mechanics are solid, and level variety is impressive. Each world has a unique theme that I enjoyed and keeps things feeling fresh. If you liked some of the older Yoshi games, you definitely get a bit of that vibe in Ao the Clown. There are a good amount of collectibles as well, which are hidden pretty decently, and even a few side missions to tackle. On top of that, there are some mini games as well, and the adorable visuals are great with the game running very smoothly. Ao the Clown isn't for hardcore platforming fans, but it's a great game to chill out with, and I really like the family friendliness of it. Well, thank you so much for making it to the end of another list. Congratulations. Let's close things out with a wonderful release called Marsupilami Hoobadventure. Now, the Marsupilami franchise is one that I had to dig deep into the recesses of my mind to remember in the first place. There have been a few Marsupilami-themed games in the past, but none are quite as fun as 2021's Hoobadventure. If you're looking for a little bit of Crash Bandicoot and just a touch of Sonic mixed together with a heaping helping of Donkey Kong Country, and maybe some Rayman as well, then this is the platformer for you. It really does a lot of things right, and I enjoyed this title quite a bit when I played it a few years back. The level of love and details that were put into the graphics, the smooth gameplay mechanics, and the soundtrack were quite surprising for a game that seemed like it got overlooked. Marsupilami Hoobadventure is available pretty much everywhere that you can play video games, so check it out if you're craving a wild adventure. And that's gonna do it for this list, folks. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It was a really fun list to put together. We've got collect-a-thons on here, we've got more action-based platformers, a whole lot of variety here. I hope you found at least a few that you never played, and now you kinda want to. As always, we thank you so much for supporting independent content here. Head over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames if you'd like to gain Discord access, early ad-free shows, and exclusive podcast shoutouts at the end of every video we produce, and so much more. Your community is excited to meet you. Thank you for watching. We also have a Twitch page launched now over at twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames, where our very lovely OK Nia streams every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. However you end up supporting independent content, we thank you so much for doing so, and I will see you in the next video.